All of Biden's gun-grabbing executive orders have two things in common with every other left-wing anti-gun proposal. They target the law-abiding, not the criminals, and they won't prevent mass shootings.
Either one, Biden is totally coherent and he was just lying to us for months and months and months, or he's not running the show. It's Kamala, it's the far left, and he's just sitting there in the Oval letting the far left radicals lead the way through Congress. So it's one or the other.
The loony left is bound and determined to steal our birthright. Shouldn't we be as determined to save it? We've been sounding the alarm here about the out-of-control federal government under the control of a political movement that is devoid of character, humanity, and love of the United States of America. Today, the latest attack was launched on Americans' rights guaranteed to us under the greatest document used as a foundation for government in human history, the U.S. Constitution. The attack was launched by the Socialist Democrats through their mouthpiece, the current occupier of the Oval Office, Biden the boob. He has our attention. Let's review what has transpired so far in this administration. Mr. Biden has unleashed three crises through his border policies: a humanitarian crisis, a national security crisis, and a public health crisis. His efforts have culminated in human misery and danger for all Americans and illegal aliens alike.
Up from raising taxes to considering expanding the court and creating a crisis at the border, President Biden has wasted no time working to undo any successes, all successes by the Trump administration. And a New York Post op-ed predicts this is just the beginning, arguing, quote, "If it ain't broke, Joe Biden will break it."
Children at this facility are being sexually assaulted. Some children in this facility are not eating throughout the day. Children with COVID are not being physically separated from children without COVID.
Governor of Texas is revealing sexual assaults in Biden's illegal alien facilities. This depravity is being done to advance socialist power grab in this country. Democrats seem to care very little about how many children have to lose their innocence for them to achieve their political power. But this is just the tip of the iceberg.
There were some policies under the Trump administration, particularly some related to the border, that were just working. And it seems like there is just a commitment to just undo, regardless of whether these policies were actually effective or not. What's your take on what you see happening across the board?
Yeah, it's exactly right, particularly on immigration, as you noted. Look, former acting Secretary of Homeland Security Chad Wolf has said we warned the President Biden's incoming administration that if they rolled back these policies, in fact, they'd see this crisis on the border. And now you even almost have a tacit admission, if reporting is accurate, that the Biden administration is acknowledging this because the new Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, has reportedly told folks at ICE that he might need to close some of the gaps in the Trump wall. In other words, resume construction of the border wall. We'll see if that actually happens, but it's almost a tacit admission that it was working under Trump. They realize it, and at least hushed whispers around DHS are saying, hey, maybe we need to go back to some of those policies.
Mr. Biden and his party praised Major League Baseball for launching an economic attack on our fellow Americans. It is the first time an occupier of the Oval Office has encouraged such economic warfare against his own people. Estimates put the economic fallout and damage of MLB's pullout of Georgia to be at least $100 million, harming black, brown, and white business owners, both Republicans and Democrats.
When you look at the agenda over the first 75 days of the Biden administration, do you see one driven by far left ideologies, or do you see one more shallowly driven by simply undoing what President Trump did? In other words, if President Trump was for it, we are against it. I think for many, by the way, in Georgia, that's what it was about. President Trump ultimately was what motivated people to feel one way or another about the Georgia law, not really ideology in the end. It's been so shallow, everything for 4 years, Kayleigh. It's always been about President Trump. Is it still?
I think it is, yes, but I do, and I agree, they're not mutually exclusive, but I do think that there is this far left radicalism that has taken over the Biden administration. And I mean, just look at the policies.
Meanwhile, Biden has assured the butchers of Beijing his friends in communist China, that Americans' money will be flowing into China for their Winter Olympics. In fact, communist China sent a warning at Biden and the leftists here in America. You'd better not withdraw from the Olympics. Biden's team quickly went into damage control mode and hastily assured China that Biden and his political party would follow China's directives to the letter. Thus, Biden has set America on a course to reward racist slavers in the communist regime of China, while simultaneously expressing joy that his fellow Americans will be harmed in Georgia.
Packing the court, assault weapons ban, the immigration plan that he put forward was a marked change from the Obama-era administration plan, which worked with the Gang of Eight, which worked with Republicans, which even though it was still not the ideal plan, at least it had some border security measures in there. Biden hasn't done that. And I said when the reporting came out that he was talking to Obama, I said, I think he's putting far more calls into AOC. And it came out days later. In fact, the chief of staff had talked to AOC. An article came out today saying AOC and her 95 other progressive members are finding a way not to buck the establishment in their party, but to work through it as if the establishment and Biden is this marionette puppet whose strings are being pulled by AOC, Ilhan Omar, and others. And that's frightening.
And today, Biden launched his latest attack against the American people's protections under the U.S. Constitution. He's coming for our right of self-defense with firearms.
Today, we're taking steps to confront not just the gun crisis, but what is actually a public health crisis. Nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment. They're phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights at stake from what we're talking about. This is an epidemic, for God's sake, and it has to stop.
Right. Things that aren't crises are crises in his mind, and things that are crises, like the border, aren't crises. Got it?
Kayleigh, you had a first row behind the scenes look at the Trump administration. You were right there. Whether you were inside or outside the administration, there was no doubt who was running the show. Donald Trump was running the show and setting the prerogatives. It's hard to look inside the Biden White House and get your arms around who's running the show. I mean, based on what you can see, who's guiding the rudder inside that White House?
It is a fascinating question because, Pete, we were told by Biden, I'm a moderate uniter. And remember, the press, the Washington Post, New York Times, and others went to great pains to say, this guy is the great moderate. He's not a leftist. He's middle of the road. Well, he comes in and everything coming out of the administration is anything but moderate. So you're left to believe either one, Biden is totally coherent and he was just lying to us for months and months and months, or he's not running the show. It's Kamala, it's the far left, and he's just sitting there in the Oval letting the far left radicals lead the way through Congress. So it's one or the other, and I wish we had more of an answer, but this is the least transparent administration, certainly in the last few decades. We never get press conferences, and when we do, the one we got was muddled and incoherent.
Unfortunately, there's a theme of being absent. You know, Joe Biden was largely absent on the campaign trail, and now you're seeing Vice President Kamala Harris be absent at the border. I mean, it's really just unthinkable stuff going on with respect to that issue.
Biden has nominated a gun grabber to head the ATF. That stands for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Get it? ATF.
Today, I'm proud to nominate David Chipman to serve as the director of the AFT. David knows the AFT well.
Complete buffoon. All of Biden's gun-grabbing executive orders have two things in common with every other left-wing anti-gun proposal. They target the law-abiding, not the criminals, and they won't prevent mass shootings. Perhaps Hunter Biden has introduced his pop to some of his old buddies in the narcotics trade, or maybe Joe Biden is every bit the idiot he has proven to be over the last half-century of him being in government and screwing it up. He apparently doesn't much care about the name of the agencies he's allegedly running, just that they help him complete his mission to usurp the Constitution and, in so doing, your rights and liberties. There are two processes I want you all to remember: Article 5, Convention of the States, and nullification. Biden, the boob, may not be able to keep it all straight, but we and our state governments had better, because the loony left is bound and determined to steal our birthright. Shouldn't we be as determined?
Oh, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Bye.